What's going on, people, and welcome to a new one today, my Premier League flops of the season. I've got a few to get through on the list. I actually got more than I thought I would have had when I come up with the idea in my head. The list is longer than I anticipated, so it might be a little bit of a longer video today. But I've got a few stats for a few of them. Yeah, let me know yours in the comments and who's not lived up to your expectations this year, because there's a lot on here, and some of the prices and fees and stuff that some of these players were bought for, you're going to be expecting a lot more than they're delivering. So without further ado, my Premier League flops of the season. Hope you enjoy. First up, Romelu Lukaku. 16 games in the league, 5 goals, and they bought him for 97.5 million. That return is not there in terms of the money they spent on him. You could argue it's nearly half of half his appearances he's matching it with goals, but it's not at half, is it? It's below half. And the way he's been playing, even just link-up play, bringing other people into play, he's got 0 assists as well. So for me, the price they paid, he's really not delivering. And especially with all the stuff that come out a few weeks back with him in that interview he did, he's not painting himself in a good light. And if you're going to do stuff like that, you need to back it up and not just talk the talk, but you've got to walk the walk. And he's not. So for me, I've been disappointed with him. I'm not a Chelsea fan, but just as a football fan, I know the quality he does have and shown in the past. But he's running his mouth and it's backfired because he's not walking the walk. And for that price, I feel like Chelsea have been cheated. And I feel very sorry for Havertz because he was playing in his position beforehand, and I think he would do a better job than Lukaku, and they're probably better off without him right now. So Lukaku, one of the major standouts for me. 16 games, 5 goals, 0 assists for 97.5 million. I would not be happy. Next up, Harry Kane. Even at the Euros, he was poor. I don't understand what's happened to him. I don't know whether it's due to a lot of him wanting to leave Tottenham and he didn't get his way. I don't know what it is with him. He scored a good goal the other day in the Cup, but it's very few and far between now for him compared to what it was and how he was performing. 19 games in the league, 5 goals, 2 assists. He's only got 2 assists over Lukaku in terms of the stats, and his stats are worse than Lukaku because he's had more games to get more goals, and he's got the same amount of goals as Lukaku with more games played. As I said, looking back a few years ago, I wouldn't have predicted that he would flop so much. So for me, he has to be on this list, and I feel like he's thrown his toys out of the pram since not getting that move, which is disappointing to see. Jack Grealish, £100 million signed for City. Ridiculous amount of money for him. I don't think he suits City because he's more of a dribbler and not just a systematic player. He's not starting all the time. His stats aren't great at all since he's joined City, and it's a bit of a weird one for me because I don't think he suits Guardiola's system, and the amount of money they spent on him, it's just a bit of a weird one. So his stats: 16 games in the league, 2 goals and 2 assists for 100 million. I would not be happy. Even if you're coming off the bench, if you're paying that much for someone, show it. And I don't think he has, and I think that he should have stayed at Villa. I think City have got it majorly wrong signing him, and I think he's got it majorly wrong going there. I think he should have stayed at Villa because he was more valued there, and I think that he suited them better than he has at City. So for me, he's been a major flop, Grealish, and the stats are there to... I'm not massive on stats. I've just got a few for some of them because I know certain people like stats. And his stats aren't good. 16 games, 2 goals, 2 assists. For 100 million, it's a joke. Next up, Dele Alli. 10 games, 1 assist. 10 games, sorry, 1 goal, 0 assists. He's just got the move to Everton. That could now propel him and try and reignite some of that form he had. But we've not seen it for years. I don't know what's happened to him. I've got a feeling that he's just not that enthusiastic about football anymore. I could be wholly wrong, but I think his performances prove that as of late for a number of years now, to be honest. Maybe going to Everton is what he needs. We have to wait and see. But 10 games, 1 goal, 0 assists. Not good enough. And then lastly, for the ones I've got stats on, Tony at Brentford. Now, he's on the list because I read quite a bit about him before they come up into the Premier League when they got promotion. And the way he talks and thinks of himself, he's very confident. And he's very self-assured. But, to me, that's not coming out in games. I've put him in my fantasy team a few times this year, and he's been terrible. 21 games, 6 goals, 2 assists. Now, people could argue it's for Brentford, he's doing well for a club of that size, and it can't all be on his at his door and the blame. But for me, the way he speaks and talks and thinks of himself, he's not walking the walk. 21 games and 6 goals. To me, that's not good. 2 assists. It's just not good enough if you're going to talk how you talk about yourself. So, Tony, I had to put on the list. Harry Maguire, someone that is embarrassing to watch for United, I think. Seems a different player for England. And I think he'd be alright for other teams, but a club of Manchester United is too big for him, I think, and he can't deal with it. He's not a captain to me either, so Harry Maguire has to be on the list. 80 million, we're not getting that money back. It's not an investment, it's a loss. That money's gone, we're not getting that back. Eric Dier, just one that's always been overrated to me. I don't get all the hype about him, and I think Tottenham's position in the table and over recent years I just don't think he's that good. So Eric Dier has to be on the list. McGinn for Aston Villa I quite liked when they first come up, but I do think his form has dipped majorly. Had quite a few injuries, but when he is playing I don't see him influencing games like he once was. So McGinn, another one, overrated for me. Pukki, struggling. That first season when they came up a few years back, he was on fire. And he's definitely not on fire anymore. Considerably. Do you know, the amount of chances I've seen him have this year that he hasn't put away is shocking. So Pukki, Armstrong at Southampton, the striker. I knew a little bit about him from the Championship, but I didn't know a lot. And the games I've seen him in, he's not been good. Don't think he's not doing his job basically as a striker. Bruno Fernandez, his stats are actually quite good. I looked him up, but I don't just base it on stats. I do it more on the eye test of just watching them game by game, and I watch all of United's games. And Bruno this year, even though the stats back him up, I don't think he's performing. He's wasteful, he gives possession away too easily, he cries, he bitches, he moans a lot, and tries to get refs to rescue him in games when it's going wrong. He's doing it a lot, and I don't like it. So Bruno Fernandes has to be on this list. Marcus Rashford, another one that is a lot of United fans are besotted with, and he's like Jesus too. I don't understand it. He hasn't been good for years. He hasn't produced for years, I don't think. So I would sell him. I've been saying it for a while, but he won't get sold because he's a United boy. But for me, very overrated. I think potentially in history he's one of the most overrated players there's been. I just don't think he shows this supposed quality he's got enough. So Rashford, Antonio from West Ham, one that I'm a big fan of, but I think this year has been disappointing compared to other seasons, especially last season. So I think West Ham have improved as a team, but on an individual basis, I think Antonio has slumped. So had to put him on the list. Royale, right back at Tottenham, scored a deflected goal that was given as an own goal the other night in the Cup. But I think he's terrible. Can't defend. He loses possession quite easily. I just don't think... I'd never heard of him before Tottenham bought him, and I wish I hadn't have, because I haven't been impressed with him when I've watched him. So Royale from Tottenham has to be in. Mane, I actually looked up the stats, and they're not actually as bad as I thought they were. But I don't know if you can remember a few years back, he had a season where I think he outscored Salah, and he was like the go-to guy for Liverpool in that attack. And he hasn't shown that form for me since. Just won the African Cup on penalties, so he showed up for Senegal in his country, and his stats aren't terrible this season, but compared to a few years back, he's not the player that I thought he was going to be consistently, so he has to make the list. Luke Shaw, another one from United. Pre-Euros, I thought he was fantastic, consistent. Post-Euros, he's gone missing, and there's a lot of stuff going on at United, so I don't put it all on him. But as an individual, I think he has definitely slumped and definitely fallen a lot, so Luke Shaw has to make the list. Another United player from the other side, right back, Aaron Wan-Bissaka. There's been glimpses in defence where he's been world class at times, I think, with last ditch tackles and blocks and keeping us in games with his defensive side. But I think even that in the last few months have slipped. And he offers nothing going forward, really. He's improved slightly going forward, but he's definitely not at the quality we need. And I'm such a bigger fan of Dele, who has been playing a lot more recently, that I would have brought in, even when he was on loan at Milan. We should have got him back from his loan. Been saying it for about a year and a half. We should have kept Dele and be giving him chances when he was out on loan, because Wan-Bissaka, he's not good enough. So Aaron Wan-Bissaka has to make the list. And then the last two, I've got Alain at Everton, highly thought of when he was brought in from Napoli, and he's just not lived up to the hype, I don't think. I'm not expecting goals from him, but I remember he scored more when he was at Napoli, even though it was not that much. He was still getting more for Napoli, and I thought he had more influence in Italy. It's a harder league, yes, over here, but when you're paying, I can't remember how much they paid for him, but I think it was quite a considerable fee. I was expecting a lot more from him from what I'd seen of what he did at Napoli. So Alain has to make the list. Lastly, for my Prem flops of the season, Partey at Arsenal. There's been a few games where I think he's been good and he's made a difference. But I think if you did a ratio, it would be certainly more towards bad games. Well, it would be. Like, the ratio would be nuts, because I think Arsenal have improved this year, but on an individual basis, again, I don't think he's playing to the level he could be and the level he was playing at for Atletico Madrid. So, yeah, Partey has to make the list. And that is it, guys. Let me know what your thoughts and who's been your flops of the season in the comments. It'd be good to see who you've got. Hope you enjoyed it, guys, and I'll speak to you soon.